This is the Dad Devotionals podcast with Dave Domzowski. Each week, I'll bring you compelling interviews that'll educate, inspire, and motivate you to become the father and husband our Lord called you to be. We're a community of devoted dads who want to strengthen our faith and family and live out our true purpose in this life. Please, won't you join us? Just text me at 717-913-5671 and you'll be welcomed into my devoted dads community. And if you want to support the podcast, we invite you to purchase a product, a book, or a course in our affiliate shop on daddevotionals.com. You can also contribute monthly at patreon.com/daddevotionals. Now, here's today's show. God bless. Today's guests are Mike Nawrocki and Amy Parker. They co-host the Bible for Kids podcast and have co-authored The Bible for Me, Bible Stories and Prayers. Mike is the co-creator of Veggie Tales and the voice, of course, of Larry the Cucumber. And Amy has authored 70 titles, including the Night Prayer books. Mike and Amy, welcome to Dad Devotionals. It's so great to have you both.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thanks for having us on, Dave. Appreciate it.
No problem at all. Let's start with this. Now, you both love connecting children and families with the Bible. A beautiful thing. You have the podcast and now this book. Can you tell us at what age are kids really able to truly understand the Bible's content?
I would say don't ever underestimate your kids and what they can understand. I feel like especially with the Bible, they tune into things so much better than we do. And just reading in general, they've proven, babies can even hear in utero, and it even helps them develop vocabulary and speech, even in utero. So it's never too early to start introducing your kids to these concepts of the Bible.
Yeah. And I think it's just story in general. I think we as human beings are wired for story, so we respond for that. We see our own lives in the context of story, so introducing kids to the stories of the scripture, the story, God's story as early as possible. Like Amy said, I don't think you can start too young.
Let's talk about the illustrations, because I've gone through it and it's just, they're just so beautiful. And I even showed it to my kids as well, and they love it. So how do you hope that Taylor Thompson is the illustrator? How do you hope that Taylor's illustrations in the book will better connect kids with the stories?
Yeah, I think Taylor did such a great job. She has such a kid-like style, I think, to her illustrations, which I think makes that attractive to kids. There's that just an innocence and a fun and kind of like a just a young kid quality to it. And I think kids will connect to that and then be able to see themselves in those stories through those illustrations.
Definitely.
And when we did this book, we did it a little backwards, I guess, from the way we traditionally operate, in that we came up with the 3 major scenes or 4 major scenes, depending on how long the story is, of each story. And then we gave art call outs to Taylor and let her illustrate the story, so that when it came time for Mike and I to write the stories, all of the details were kind of taken care of in the illustrations, and we got to focus on the development of the story itself. And then side personal note, toward the end of the production of this book, Taylor was pregnant, ready to become a mom herself. And I think that just breathed a whole new life into these illustrations. And she went back, and not necessarily because of that, but because of all that she had learned in the development of this book, she went back and revised a lot of the illustrations, saying, I can do better than that now. This has been years in the making. So she went back with all she had learned and maybe with that new inspiration as a mom, and went back and revised some of the illustrations. So I think her heart really sings through all of these illustrations.
Absolutely. And you can really see that. And that's so beautiful. Thanks for telling us that, because it's interesting to see how the perspective changes once you become the parent.
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So let's talk about the prayers after each story, because that's really important in introducing your kids, no matter how young, to the art of prayer. How can parents and grandparents use those as they read to the kids?
Yeah, well, each story, we've kind of identified a central theme, within the story itself. And then it comes up, that theme then comes up in a prayer in the end. And, the whole idea of the Bible for me is really highlighted in the prayer, because the parent is then able to place their own child's name in that prayer as they're reading. So there's a little color-coded pronoun in there, and, just to insert that name as they're reading. But it really personalizes that story in just a very simple, kid-friendly way, to be able to help the kid ground themselves in that story.
Yeah, and I feel like too, it helps to internalize the theme of the story. If you look at educational models, when you teach something, you present the information, and then the final part of the educational model is just letting kids internalize it themselves, letting kids sort of speak back to you what they've learned. And in doing that, in these prayers, they're really personalized. Their names are inserted into these prayers. The kids can read them themselves, or they can say them along with the parent. And it just makes that theme really applicable to their own lives when they see, when they speak these prayers with that theme and their own name. It just brings it all together and makes it really applicable to their lives, I feel like.
Absolutely. Now, what's the response been like so far? What feedback are you getting?
Well, we've been getting photos of kids reading, and on the Bible for Me Instagram, it's my favorite thing, because there are all these parents sending in photos of their kids reading these books and asking to read these books. And I mean, if we can get our kids, I don't care what Bible story book you get, if you can get your kids to ask to hear the stories of the Bible, then it's a win. Yeah. And so just seeing that over and over on that Instagram page and hearing the testimonials from the parents has just been so inspiring to me.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We hear a lot about just that combination of, the illustrations, the clear and simple stories, and then the personalization. I think all of those three, have worked really well together and to resonate.
Absolutely. Well, let's take a moment to thank our sponsors. When we come back, we'll chat more with Amy and Mike about the Bible for Me. We'll be right back, folks. Want to start a website for your family business? Check out Bluehost and get everything you need to start up your own website. Select your domain, a design template, and get the right hosting plan. Whether you're starting or growing a digital business, brick and mortar shop, or you're selling eggs on the family farm, Bluehost can help you get your business online. Plans for Dad Devotionals listeners and RunTheMoney.com fans start at $2.95 per month with a free domain for 1 year. Go to runthemoney.com/Bluehost and sign up. That's runthemoney.com/Bluehost. Get it done. All right, we're back with Amy and Mike. We're continuing our conversation about their new book, The Bible for Me, Bible Stories and Prayers. Guys, what has changed, you would say, maybe since your childhood, in the ways kids are exposed to the Bible, for better or worse?
Well, one of the things we talked about early on was just how I remember growing up and how disconnected the stories of the Bible felt. Like, okay, there was the story of Noah, but what relation did that have with the story of Abraham? Did that have with the story of Jonah or Jesus? So it's just that there was these stories that sort of existed. So what I feel like, has been, what we really wanted to do, and what I've seen more and more is these stories in context in a way that connects them to one another, that shows that this is a grand story of God and his plan for humanity and his love for us. And so, and I think that's really important for kids to be able to connect the dots between, Genesis and Revelation. And so, to me, that's one thing that's changed since I was a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think in doing that, we, when we say this is the story of us, this is if you're God's people, then this is the story of us. This isn't just some ancient story about a dusty guy named Abraham. This is way back when. This is the beginning of our story. This is humanity. This is who we are. And even with all the mistakes they made, God loved them still. And in essence, that's who you are. Even with the mistakes you make, or God loves you still. You can still participate in God's purposes. He still calls us to do that. And so I feel like when we connect that story, we put it in that bigger context, then it makes the story that much more relatable and applicable to the kids.
How important would you say that is to the children growing up? I mean, just having them understand that concept.
I think it's of the utmost importance. I don't think there's anything more important than seeing ourselves in the big story of God and his people. It gives us, I think today more than ever, maybe people are struggling with identity. It gives us that identity. We're rooted in that. We are rooted, we're God's children. And if you can hang on to that identity from childhood throughout your life, then, you have an advantage over everyone else. You know who you are, and you can work from that foundation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What do you think, Mike?
Just that realization, through story for kids that there is a God who made us, who loves us, who has a purpose for us and wants a relationship with us. I think that is just, if you know that on a heart level, that's going to just be, a really powerful thing in your life.
Well, let's get a little personal. Do your own children act as testers for any new book or concept ideas you have? And are they usually fans or critics?
Well, my own children are a little older now. They used to early on. So I remember, test driving silly songs and then, VeggieTales stories on my kids. And now my new book series, Sea Squirrels, is based off of my son, Michael, and his friend group growing up when they were kids. But my son now is 21 and my daughter's 24. So, they have a different sort of critique now at that age. So I don't know what you think, Amy.
Yeah, absolutely. Mine just grew up. I mean, being my editors, that was their job growing up, is to be my editors, to be my feedback. And so they don't really, think anything about it, but even now, mine are older too. But even now I still run everything by them and get their perspective on it. Just, I just feel it makes it that much richer, and it always has.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, let's get into a little bit more about what else you have going on outside of the book and the podcast. Mike, you mentioned the Sea Squirrels. How new of a concept is that?
That's been around for a couple of years now. I think the very first book came out in 2018, maybe 2019. But so far there are 10 books released in the series. It's an early reader series. A lot of illustrations. Each book is about 20 chapters, 8,000 words. So really great for kids, first through fifth grade. I've got, book 11 is written. I've got one more to write until the 12, wrapping up the series of 12. It's a kind of a big narrative story over 12 books. And so that's been a blast working on. And then over the last about year and a half or 2 years, we've actually launched into animating those books. So we're funded on 13 episodes of animation, and we're working on that, and hopefully that'll have a home somewhere soon, and we'll have some exciting announcements about that.
Excellent. And Amy, as I said at the outset, 70 titles. Anything else going on now? You got it up to 80, 90, 100 now?
2 years ago, I started law school, so I slowed down writing a little bit. But we are still working on the Night series. I've finished writing and almost finished editing a new title there, and that will release next summer. And then, and it's super fun and super cute, and I wish I could tell you all about it, but it's not public yet. So, and then we may be working on the next title in the Bible for Me series as well. So We've got those things going, and
not another Bible, but just a
right.
kind of a companion piece.
Yes, definitely. Well, I guess but you never stop writing. You're in law school. That's all you do is write.
Read and write. It's just not fun reading.
You just loved it so much you wanted to try a different type of writing.
What is wrong with me? Yeah.
All right. Well, now I want to get us into the Fatherhood 5. It is my favorite segment of the show. It's like a lightning round. So you're just quick answers. First thing that comes to mind. And we'll just play off of both of you. How's that sound?
Great.
Sounds great.
All right. So what is the most rewarding thing about being a parent? Amy, let's start with you.
Oh, so I'm in that. And this isn't lightning. I can't be lightning.
That's sorry. Okay.
No, but just my kids are older now. So seeing them come into who they are. I mean, you don't see that as much when they're toddlers. I mean, some you see their personalities coming through, but just seeing them, my older son, live independently, he's engaged, seeing him sort of being the leader of that almost household, just seeing him come into who he is. And then my 17-year-old has just graduated high school, and just seeing all of the possibilities ahead for him, just seeing them becoming who they are, I think is the most rewarding thing at this stage.
Parenting come into fruition. I love it.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was thinking the exact same thing, Amy. So I'm just going to echo that. But I just love, seeing my kids happy, seeing their love for God, seeing how that is displayed in their decisions and in their actions, and in kind of in what they want to do with their lives. And so it's really rewarding as a parent to raise your kids and see them have that independence and see them off on the right way. So it's just been it's a joy. It's a lot of work. I thought parenting was going to be over when they graduated high school, but I was wrong.
Sorry, spoiler alert. Yeah.
They keep coming back.
That's right.
Well, the second question I have for you is what's the most difficult thing about being a parent?
Just the daily questioning yourself about every decision. And I don't know how you make it without having God, without having that guiding voice, without having the book of instructions that he gave us. Right. I don't know how you do it otherwise, but just a lot of prayer and just help me make the right decision here. Help me be the parent that I need to be. And then please compensate for everything that I do wrong. That is really the daily prayer, and just the daily uncertainty of not knowing how to do this thing, and then just pushing forward anyway.
Yeah, in that surrender of knowing that ultimately our children are not ours; they're God's. And I think that's great. And I always felt like when my kids were younger, the physical demands with keeping up with them were difficult, just the lack of sleep and the running around and, all of that. But the older they get, those physical demands turn into kind of emotional, demands, and, just supporting them, worrying about them as they're out late and, wondering if they're going to get home on time and, thinking about the decisions that they're making. So there's always that either physical or mental or emotional energy that we're pouring into our kids. But if we, can stand back and say, okay, this is not my person that I need to, completely care for all that. This is
right. That balance.
Yeah, exactly.
Mine are 6 and 4 right now. I have a son and a daughter. So, they're just keeping us busy. Everything as soon as I'm done work, we're out the door to something. Entire weekends are either, swim meets or golf practices or whatever. It's pretty intense.
That's precious. I would love to see 6-year-old golf.
I got to tell you, he's been playing since he's 3.5. He loves it. He loves it.
Oh my goodness.
He can already drive the ball like 100 yards. It's nuts.
Holy smoke. Tigers
better than I am already.
He's gunning for Charlie Woods, that he is.
All right. Nice.
Sweet.
So how do you react or I guess, did you react to, we could play it that way also, when one of your kids did something wrong?
Yeah.
It's a good one.
Different every single time.
So many things, and different for every child too. I remember with my daughter. My daughter was such a rule follower. If she did something wrong, if you just kind of looked at her harshly, she'd break down and cry, and like it would be the end of the world for her. With my son, it'd be like, what?
Yep.
What I do? I don't know. So so it was so different from each child and how to handle that. But it's. Anyways, Amy.
And same here. My older son was very people pleaser, rule follower, wanted to do what we asked him to do. You ask him to do something, he did it. And then the second one, the redhead came along, and we were like, oh my goodness, we have to relearn everything. And basically just had to give him the why behind everything. Like, this is why we don't make those decisions. This is why we do make these decisions. And if he bought it, then he would comply. But with him, he was just so strong-willed. So yeah, and then responding when they do something wrong, was different with each one. But I mean, we've had to do Bible verse write-offs, things like that. But also just treating them. I think it's so important to respect your kids, to treat them like they have a brain and can make their own decisions. And if you start young with that, then when they get older, they'll show you they do have a brain and can make their own decisions. But just, I think respecting your kids needs to be the undertow of all of that.
Yeah. And just the love you have for them and knowing that, I've got this, the reason we're saying this or doing this is because we love you, and showing them that love rather than just drawing the line and saying, don't do this or don't do that. It's like, no, setting that example for them and then loving them through their mistakes and their successes.
Yeah. Love it. You setting the example and then giving them the space to act in there. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
What would you say is the best book on parenting?
Oh, I don't know. The Bible. Is that the right answer? I mean, I don't know that I've read any one book on parenting. I'm trying to think. My husband swears by Wild at Heart. We have 2 boys, and it's not a parenting book, obviously, but the premises that are there in Wild at Heart, he swears by those and says that, boys' needs come out of that whole Wild at Heart premise. And so he does swear by that book, but really it's been a lot of prayer, a lot of seeking, a lot of, reading the Bible. It does give you some basic premises for parenting, but I don't know that there's any one that I've read that I would swear by.
And I, for especially in the early years, I really leaned hard on my wife, Lisa, who is an early childhood educator. So she's had a lot of, theory around, children
developmental
and the way they
stages.
think. Yeah. But it's so funny. But when, so when they were young, but when they grew up, when they got older, she was like, okay, I'm lost now. What do we do? So I don't know either.
Just a side note, you just got me thinking. I mean, did talking with your wife influence some of the things you did with VeggieTales?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I think there's no going, just all, from lessons to just general, what she brought into my life as a person, she's native Spanish speaking, so all of the, I've got the Dance of the Cucumber poster behind me, that we wrote together, and just the way, being involved with her and her culture has influenced my storytelling. And so, so no, it's just been so wonderful. And I would show, as I was writing scripts and developing stories, bouncing those off of her as well as my kids. And, she'd always have, really great points to add.
Very cool. I'm always interested in the creative process.
Yeah, and in the Dead Sea Squirrels as well. Michael's last name is
Gomez. Yeah, which
Gomez,
is which is my wife's maiden name. So kind of bringing that family dynamic in, I think is great for all writers, just to kind of write what you know.
Yeah. No, I love that. All right, last one. Name a Bible verse you're meditating on lately.
The joy of the Lord is my strength. That's been it for the last probably couple of years. But yeah, when I am struggling and, there's a lot going on, and I just remember that, the joy of the Lord is my strength. Just basking in him keeps me strong, and I can, find joy in him when everything else is hard. Yeah.
Yeah. And mine is similar. My grace is sufficient for you. My power is made strong in weakness. The 2 Corinthians verse.
Yes.
Just knowing that it is not up to me, as a parent or as anything, it's I can lean on God and rely on him and his grace and his strength, for everything in life.
Beautiful stuff, guys. Thank you so much for that. I guess maybe I should rename it more of a conversation round, because that was awesome. Forget the lightning part. Yeah. That was great.
We're writers. We don't do lightning.
That is quite all right.
Description and yeah.
I am more than happy to be humble and adapt. That's what I'm about here on the podcast. All right. Well, we are just about out of time, but before we go, tell us about the Buy One, Give One program with the Salvation Army and how we can grab a copy of the book.
Yeah. Go ahead, Amy.
Well, I was just going to say, the Buy One, Give One is bigger than anything we could have dreamed or asked for. But our agent, Dan Lynch, approached K-Love with this concept, and he's tried it several times before with other publishers, and he approached K-Love with it, and they immediately, like within 24 hours, said, oh yes, we have donors standing by waiting to just give to something like this powerful. And then they partnered with the Salvation Army, and the Salvation Army is going to help find those families who can use a copy of the book. And so for every copy that you purchase, another copy goes to a family in need. So not only are you gifting your own family with these Bible stories that just will help to internalize the Word of God for your kids, you're also sending that gift to a family who otherwise may not be able to, spend $20 on a Bible storybook for their kids. That's just increases the impact that much more.
Absolutely. Mike, were you going to say something?
Yeah, not really much to add to that. It's just an incredible opportunity, and I just feel so appreciative to K-Love in standing behind this, and to the Salvation Army for doing the work on the ground to get these books out. And it's not, they're the exact same book. It's not like a cheap knockoff that goes off for free. It's the exact book, and it's just an incredible commitment from K-Love to be able to provide that, and we're so appreciative of that.
No, that's beautiful. That's the message of the Bible. You learn about what it means to be of the Lord, and then you go and share that with the world. So it's just a beautiful sentiment. I love it.
Yes, and we would not be doing our job here if we didn't tell you where to find it. So
please do.
So you can go to either the Bible for Me or the BibleForKids.com. Both of those websites will feed you to where you can find the Bible for Me, Bible stories and prayers.
Perfect. Well, the book is The Bible for Me. And we just spoke with Mike and Amy. Guys, thank you so much for coming on the show. This was wonderful.
Thank you.
Thanks for spending time with us.
David, Thank you so much. A pleasure to be here.
Definitely. Well, may God grant you many blessed years and continue to touch in the lives of children and families throughout the world. And take care. We look forward to great things.
Thank you.
God bless. Yes. Thank you for listening to Dad Devotionals. Be sure to text me at 717-913-5671 to join the Devoted Dads community. Do me a favor and share this episode with at least one other person who could benefit. Until next time, take care and God bless.